looking at ways to monitor, track, and reduce it. And really, it's about working towards meeting those Paris climate agreements. And so I guess really I'm going to be taking over Guy's presentation today of looking at through like your own household emissions and going through a little bit about that, just to have a brainstorm and get the ball rolling of people sharing ideas and just having an open space to talk in. Does that sound all good?
Sounds fine. Where are you going?
Awesome. Cool. I will share my screen and I will go from there. And if anyone has questions as I go along, obviously feel free to chip in. I just share my screen. Cool. Awesome. Can everyone see the full presentation? Is that good? Cool. Awesome. So yeah, obviously, I know you've been having a full-on workshop day today, and it's probably getting to the end of your day, so you're probably getting a bit tired. So I'll keep it hopefully engaging, but not too heavy. And I know you've had a lot of talks from scientists, and now we're kind of looking more into household emissions and thinking about what that personal impact is that you have on your own lives, your community's lives, and the wider environment. And a little bit about what I'll cover is why measure, why it's important to measure and look at your carbon footprint, a bit about the process, and a few other things such as reduction, and also I'll leave you some educational materials that can be really useful to look through. So I guess the first question that Guy really said that would be good to think about is, what is the connection between your house and the environment? So what I was thinking is, to make it a bit more engaging, his idea was that maybe you could all break off for, let's say, 3 minutes, and 3 to 5 minutes, let's say 5 minutes, and go away and just brainstorm really a few ideas on what impact, what activities within your household will have an impact on the environment. And that can be both negative, and also feel free to share those positive ones, and really just get the ball rolling and start thinking about that. So is everyone happy to brainstorm for 5 minutes? I know there's a room full of everyone there, to make a few breakaway groups and spend 5 minutes and then come back to me with some ideas. Can everybody hear? Oh yeah, there's Andre.
Okay. Now can you hear us?
Oh, awesome. Great. Cool. Yeah. So hopefully that chat was a nice productive way to go away and brainstorm some positives and some things that are perhaps a barrier. And I wondered if the group in the room together wanted to share some. They can either say them aloud if that works, or you can post them in the chat.
Just keep going, I think.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. I'll carry on. So yeah, I guess in our chat, in our breakaway group, you know, there's lots of positive things people are doing at the moment, which is really cool to see. And it can be simple things from composting to looking into solar and investing in e-cars. And obviously there are barriers that come with that. As one of the people in our group said, investing in solar can seem like a daunting thing, and it can have a lot of barriers. There are some that you can look into and we can recommend. And if you want to reach out to us after this, then feel free, because there are some companies that support it. Either you can invest in it yourself, or there's companies like Solar Zero that will install the solar panels, and they own the solar panels, but you get a portion of the electricity. So really, there's lots of separate parts of household emissions, and kind of some other ones to touch upon. Obviously, your travel has a really big effect, and it's quite interesting. When at Ekos, we measure small to medium enterprises to larger organizations and councils. A really high emission hotspot will be obviously your flights. And so obviously, since COVID's happened, in some ways it's been good, because obviously flights have been reduced, but as we come out of that now, there's more traveling going on. But looking into ways of reducing your travel, can you take a car instead of fly there? Will railway travel become more of a thing here in New Zealand? So there's lots of opportunities to reduce there. And so that's always a hotspot that can easily be reduced. Even going from premium to economy class, it like almost halves the emissions, because you're effectively using 2 or 3 people's space in premium. And so there's lots of different areas and activities like that that can really have an impact. And so really it's all interrelated into your carbon footprint. And again, with travel, when we measure a business, often they might choose one of the categories they can choose to select to meet the international standards is measuring their staff commuting. And again, like, it's quite interesting to see how that personal, household, individual choice will affect an organization and the wider community, because staff commute can greatly increase an organization's footprint, because it's a daily activity that everyone has to do if they're going into the office or to somewhere. And again, are there ways to reduce that? And just those daily activities, when everyone's doing it, will have such a great impact. And so I won't do it now, but I'll send this link. I can send it afterwards perhaps, but there's a cool game here that I thought might be quite interesting, being in politics, because it's basically a climate change game set up by Financial Times, and it's just like a run through of decision making, and you have your life, your amount of energy, and you have the amount of carbon emissions you're trying to reduce by 2050, and it will take you through rounds and different questions, and you might earn certain badges for making certain decisions, and some decisions you might not be able to make because you've not got enough energy. But it's a really interesting one, just to see where you come out at the end of the game, whether you've managed to meet the Paris Climate Agreement, whether you're sitting at the 2 degrees increase or the 1.5, and it's quite interesting. And there's definitely 1 or 2 questions in that caught me out. So I'll send that through at the end. And yeah, to go back to carbon footprint. So to understand the carbon impact of your lifestyle, it's kind of the personal step that you can take in order to support the global transition towards a net zero future. And so measuring is so that you can understand, and kind of the saying we have at Ekos is you can't manage what you don't measure. So that's the theory behind that. And really, in measuring, you're gathering data to use it strategically, obviously, to look at ways you can reduce. And again, as I was saying, by measuring, you might think that, oh, recycling should be my priority. But when you do a full measurement, you might realize that actually, emissions-wise, if it's an easy reduction action to make, then you should do it, but it might actually not have the biggest impact, even though it seems like an obvious one. It might be that hidden travel, or yeah, if you're commuting a lot, it could be that. And so that's kind of the benefit of measuring, so that you can strategically use that data to look at reductions. Yeah, and obviously, in all doing our part from the chat that we had, it sounded like lots of people were doing really positive things already, and it can feel a bit defeatist, because you're like trying to do so much and you see other people maybe not doing as much, but it's all about leading by example. And as Sean always says, the owner at Ekos, it's all about putting, as you all probably know, putting your shoulder to the wagon and all doing your bit. And so that's pretty much everything here that I think he wants to say. And what I'll quickly do in talking about measurement is show you how you could do this online, and you can just measure for free on Ekos' own calculators that we kind of used and put online. And we use like all the Ministry for Environment's emission factors and everything. And it again helps you look at your household and other lifestyle activities. So I will bring that up. Can you see the individual offsetting website thing, or is it still on the PowerPoint? I'll reshare it. Cool. Just shout out if you can't see the calculator I'm on at the moment. But so on Ekos' website, we obviously look at organizations, but we also have this individual offsetting calculator, which is pretty cool in that you can just input data and just get an estimate for your footprint for free. And it's just, again, something that you can play around with if you've got a few minutes. And as you can see, you can choose to offset your lifestyle emissions, household emissions, driving, flight. So you can really target one area, or you can look at it as a whole. And again, we can just do an example one here just to show exactly how much you can produce.
That's not.
So as you can see here, you can input your electricity, which is quite interesting. So for a year period, or if you just want to do a shorter period, you can measure your electricity through your bills. Normally on your bills, obviously they'll have the kilowatt hours, and you can use that and input that unit into here. And so if I instantly, you can already see here total electricity emissions 0.014 you can tons. So that's 0.014 tons of CO2 equivalent. And so already you can see, you can start to get a feel for how much you use and how much just your electricity is contributing for any set period, which is really interesting. And again, it's just another way to see that the big impact, and again, how even using energy efficient appliances and just turning off the lights will have that impact. And so here as well, you've got an option to choose carbon neutral suppliers or not. And in this case, it's either Meridian do certificates for their renewable energy, or here the sort of standard example is Ecotricity, which you might all have heard of or already use. And basically it's all Ecotricity use all renewable energy, and as well as that, they offset everything that goes through the grid, like all the T&D losses. And so it becomes carbon neutral. And again, it's just one of those easy wins that either individuals or businesses can do. That again, it just has that purchasing power, like it's using your consumer say and voting with your wallet. And again, with waste, it's the same. And as well, you can pick driving emissions and flights, and I'll just click on flights because again, I find this one really interesting. So yeah, if I do a two-way flight within New Zealand, I'm producing already, you see how high this is compared to electricity use. It's like 0.5 almost tons of CO2 just from one return flight. And again, if you add in, if you do maybe one international trip to Oz, again, it boosts it right up to 1.3 tons of CO2. So you can just see those emission hotspots, which is really interesting. Yeah, and so if you did ever use this calculator, you can see your, understand a little bit more about your carbon footprint. And there is a section on offsetting, which if anyone has any questions, I don't know if you've touched upon it today, but if you have any questions about offsetting, feel free to reach out to Ekos and we can send you through some more information on it. But again, you can become either carbon friendly recognized or official certification for net zero carbon. And yeah, all of Ekos's offsets are supported through native indigenous reforestation programs. So it's something we're really passionate about. Cool. And so I know this is going to be a 45-minute presentation or so, so I'll just quickly basically summarize everything we've gone through so far. But obviously looking at household emissions, everyone's individual impact can have a lot, and again, it's all about knowledge sharing and being open and having open conversations with people about what barriers they faced, whether it's changing to solar, and looking and sourcing information from friends, and you can reach out to Ekos or other people for advice. And so I think Guy, the last thing he wanted us to touch upon was that if you're ever interested in measuring an organization, then that's really, as well as our online tool for individuals, this is a big part of Ekos's work, is helping businesses achieve those Paris climate agreements and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions, and look at offsetting as well as another combined strategy towards that. And so we have our own tools that, as I touched upon, use the Ministry for Environment's emission factors. So they're the latest factors to work out the emissions. And we align to those two standards down here, the international standard, the ISO 14064, and the greenhouse gas protocol standards. And at the end, we basically give people a very comprehensive carbon inventory report that's again meeting those standards and rationalizing all of the calculations, any assumptions we've made, and what's been included and what's not, because as I touched upon, some businesses might want to include staff commute because it's an important part of their strategy to try and look at what can be reduced, or they might choose to exclude it because they might be focusing on getting a core understanding of their base activities and then going further deeper into your scope 3 later on. And that's something kind of, I guess, internationally is recognized by the standard, and probably, as you see, is that these things are always developing. So it's okay to not be measuring or understanding fully at the start and just accepting that it's a learning curve. And so that's what we do here at Ekos, and we basically the analyst works with them throughout and is there on hand for any of the tricky parts that often come up, especially with freight and stuff like that. And really what we kind of try and do at Ekos when we're then consulting with them is, as I touched upon, even just with your own household data, is utilizing that data strategically to identify your emission hotspots, and then looking up ways you can achieve that and reduce it, which, as you can see kind of here, is often looking at, as you probably know, behavioral changes, infrastructure changes, and policy changes. And we often give like general ideas for each one, and then the company can go away and, again, like we had, have those break-off chats and brainstorm ideas, because often the people who are on the ground and in management will have ideas of ways to do things, and by coming all together you can actually have a wider impact. And so in this example, it's that fuels, obviously, like your natural gas or diesel that you might be using. So again, it could be a lifestyle thing of your gas cookers, or in businesses the same. Looking at behavioral things, is it a timer or thermostat? Like, such an easy one, but again, one that's often overlooked. Can you just have regular maintenance of your machines? Because again, a lot can happen just from that, of leaks and everything. Infrastructure, obviously, having the upgrade the infrastructure to renewables, and policy changes, again, that upon renewal, first consideration will be given to replacing fossil fuels. So again, bringing in those policy changes, whether that's individual ones or as an organization. And I guess the last thing I have here is really just some material that we often share with people. So I will leave this with Andre and everyone else, and you can access these links after the webinar. And really, we just have some articles about, again, carbon offsetting, because I won't touch upon it in this call, but carbon offsetting, is it cheating or not? There's so much debate around that right now, and what's needed for it to be legitimate, and what the importance of actually having it is, and how it should be used. And again, some academic articles published by Sean Weaver, the owner, again, about the importance of native indigenous forests and how that can we can achieve good carbon financing through that, and links to other webinars we've done, and also some collaborative work. And again, it's really cool to be a part of Ekos and just see some of the collaborative work that comes out of everyone getting together and brainstorming. Like in Nelson, we worked with tourism operators, and together they were able to create a zero carbon itinerary. So again, it's just that, and it makes a statement, and it just stands out individually. Those tour operators wouldn't be able to communicate and show as much as coming together and creating that one itinerary. So there's lots of really cool things going on in the area at the moment in regards to how people can achieve net zero, and also just look at reductions, and how to get other stakeholders on board and influence other stakeholders. And I think that's pretty much everything that Guy had in mind. So I will leave it there. But here's our website and our email address, so you can reach out to us there if you have any questions about anything. Then we will do our best to answer and get the information from the right person in the team to help you out. Cool. Thank you for listening. Thank you.
Any quick questions?
Yeah,